All right, let's take a look at number 4 now. Okay, I'll slide a little bit. 4 says, due to a strike in the supplier's plant, Lucy & Pales Corporation is unable to purchase more material for the production of pups. The strike is expected to last 2 months. The company has enough material on hand to continue operating at 40% of its normal levels for the 2-month period. As an alternative, Lucy & Pals could close its plant down entirely for the 2 months. If the plant were closed, fixed manufacturing overhead would continue at 60% of their normal level during the 2-month period, and fixed selling expense would be reduced by 30%. What would be the impact of closing the plant for the 2 months? Okay, so we need to evaluate what happens in the 2-month. All right, so if the plant operates at 40% of normal levels, then we need to figure out how many units would be produced. So units produced, and this is for a 2-month period. Okay, I'm going to slide and actually write it over here. So we know 54,000 is their annual level. We can divide that by 12 if I do this correctly, then multiply it times 2, that's our 2/12th amount, and then take that by 40%, and hopefully I've done that all correct and we come up with 3,600 units. That's good. That's correct. So I'm going to just type in the word units here so we know. So we've got 3,600 units. That's all we can produce and sell during the 2-month period. All right, so let's look at what would happen in terms of contribution margin. Okay, we would have contribution lost if the plant were closed. Why don't I just say with closure? Okay, we'll understand that's the plant closure. And that would be equal to the 3,600 that we could produce if we kept it open, times that 550, the base case we talked about in plant 1, right? The contribution margin per unit. So we start off saying the contribution lost is 19,600, and I'm going to turn that into a negative number so we know that that represents bad news to us, or a loss of income. Okay, then we would have fixed costs that could be avoided, and the fixed cost avoided were equal to, let me go back and read that a little bit, 60% of their normal level, and the normal level was 135,000. Now we can slide back over and say what we need to do is take 135,000 times 2/12. Okay, so last time I took it divided by 12, multiplied it for 2 months. This time we just take it 2/12. But the costs were only going to be incurred at about a 40% of regular level. So we should come up with $9,000 of fixed cost avoided. Okay, now that we have that, we also would avoid fixed selling expenses. Avoided, right? Because if we shut it down, we're not going to incur those. Those were equal to 108,000 given in the problem, again times 2/12. And this time we would occur 30% of what we normally would. So the amount we would avoid, or the savings, would be that 5,400. And let me format a little bit more. So the net, if we take the 9,000 and the 54, why don't I slide this over? I'm going to put that there, and then I'm going to sum this right here so that we have the contribution margin lost, then the savings and cost of 14,400, and then if I just sum from above, what we come up with in our analysis is that we would be worse off by closing the plant. So the net, call this the disadvantage. Actually, I want to call this the net. You could call it disadvantage, the loss. You could call it the predicted impact. Anything like that sort of describes this scenario. The net disadvantage of closing the plant comes out to be 5,400. So That's probably not our best alternative. I'll put a $sign around that as well so that it looks like it's in proper form. Okay, I think we have one more to do, which is number 5. Okay, let's slide down and look at number 5. An outside manufacturer has offered to produce pups for Lucy and Pals Corporation and to ship them directly to the corporation's customers. Now, if Lucy and Pals accepts this offer, the facilities that it used to produce pups would be idle, and the fixed manufacturing overhead expenses would be reduced by 70%. Because the outside manufacturer would pay for all shipping costs, the variable selling expense would be only 2/3 of their present amount. So here and then we're asked to compute the unit cost that would be relevant for comparison to the price quoted by the outside manufacturer. Okay, so we have this, if you will, outsourced scenario we need to evaluate. So we'll slide down and we'll say, let's come up with those relevant costs to use as a comparison. Well, again, we start with the variable manufacturing cost. I'm going to abbreviate the word manufacturing cost here. And, I don't think I'm going to need much space, so I'll put it here. Well, those variable manufacturing costs were the same as in the second case, so we'll just copy from above, $13.30. And then we need to consider what happens to fixed manufacturing. Okay, so fixed manufacturing overhead, again abbreviated, is going to be equal to the $135,000, the total cost of fixed manufacturing cost, times 70%, because we're going to be able to reduce that amount. And that comes up with a dollar amount of $94,500. Now, that's not quite what we want because we want to turn this on a per unit basis. So I'll take that amount and divide it by 54,000. Okay, and normally, even though I don't think it's necessary because of the way Excel knows how to do these calculations, I'm going to put parentheses around that to show that we're taking the dollar amount first and then dividing it by the 54,000 units to come up with $1.75 of what our new fixed manufacturing overhead cost would be. Okay, then we need to consider our variable selling expenses that we're going to incur. And the selling expenses wind up to be $1.20, which was given earlier, and we're only going to have 1/3 of them, so I'll divide it by 3. Okay, format again. Probably need to do some formatting in case I need it. That's 40 cents. So these represent the total avoidable costs, right? The fixed manufacturing, the 70%, is the dollar amount of fixed costs that will go away. This is the dollar amount of the selling expenses that will go away, right? It's only a portion, 1/3 will go away. And so my total avoidable costs turn out to be $15.45. Okay, now what that means is the outside manufacturer's quote must be less than $15.45 per unit. If their quote comes out to be higher than $15.45 per unit, then it's not in the company's best interest in terms of evaluating it in terms of contribution margin or profits to the business of taking the offer. Now, this is just the most direct way you could solve this. You could also do a current scenario and future scenario and do it based on the annual volumes and figure out which way you're better off. But then you're probably going to have to divide it by the number of units to come up with what the avoidable costs are, or come up with what that price would be. So here we've done it in the most direct way, and that takes care of this problem, everyone. Thank you.